Nothing Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neal. And we're joined by legendary Disney animator Andreas Deja, who's making his directorial debut with Mushka. Very cool to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
So, what's the inspiration for the story?
Well, when I was working at Disney, sometimes I was wondering if you would have time to do your own short film, your own idea, what might that be? And way back, I had a few ideas, but it really wasn't practical because work at the studio takes your full attention, and it can't be a weekend thing, you know, that you work away. So now that I did have some time, I thought, well, let me do this now. And I just asked myself a series of questions. Basically, what would you like to animate that you haven't animated yet? And I've always loved tigers and drawn tigers. And I thought, well, I have a little bit of experience from Lion King, studying big cats, you know, so I could transfer that onto this tiger. And then I thought, well, maybe a story with a girl and a tiger. There could be some tension and some adventure with it, and that could be interesting. A girl raising a tiger and their bond. And as the tiger gets bigger, the girl finds out that there are bad people around them who actually want to kill him and sell the body. And so she finds out about it, and she wants to save him, of course. And the only thing she can think of is taking him back into the forest where she found him, and hopefully he'll be a wild tiger from then on. But maybe things don't go according to plan. And that's not a story yet. That's just an idea. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who has written novels and even writes poetry and does architecture, just all kinds of artistic things. And I said, Micah, maybe you can help me with this and flesh this out. So he took my idea and then wrote this really interesting screenplay, added characters. There was a grandma. There was a father all of a sudden that she never knew, that she had to spend time with. And it really felt like a little novel. And I thought, well, it's pretty compact. Let's do this, you know? And so that's how we got started.
I think it's so excellent that you took a tiger that you love for the Jungle Book, and Shere Khan is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Always loved. The villains are so cool because they're so really much more expressive than the protagonist most of the time. And you took this character who is, you know, the evilest of evil. And now you've got Mushka, who is this dangerous animal. And you see that the entire time, even before things, you know, intensify. And I just find it really fascinating that you made this transition for this tiger.
Yeah, the challenge with my tiger, with Mushka, was like, he doesn't talk. You know, that's an entirely different thing. You know, when you have a humanized animal with human voices, that's what Disney is known for. And I've done that, of course, many times. But here is a tiger who is supposed to be expressive, and you're supposed to know what he's feeling at the moment, but he is not vocalizing that. He's a real tiger. And so the first scene that I actually animated of him, because I had very, very strong feelings about that, I started to do a scene in the middle of the film where Sarah has taken him back to the forest and says goodbye to him, and he does not understand what's going on. And she yells at him, said, go away, get out of here. And then there's this medium close-up of the tiger just kind of taking a couple of steps backward, because she's never yelled at him. You know, he's trying to understand what's going on here. So again, he's not vocalizing, but you need to see that in his face. So you had to be very careful how you portray that. And it actually was a challenge, but a really welcoming challenge, because I really hadn't done that.
And I also, the tiger is very realistic. Like Shere Khan is a tiger. We know it's a tiger, but there's like all these different features. It's very over the top, but your tiger is very real, and that there's so much in the eyes. There's so much going on in the eyes, and so subtle, but you can still see it as an audience member.
Yeah, and the way I started out is with any assignment, it's really research. So I researched tigers, and I was very lucky. About a decade ago, the LA Zoo here actually did have a tiger mom with 2 cubs. So I was so lucky, and so I went down there and sketched, and a friend of mine took some footage, so I could study that at home later, frame by frame. And then you also look at like National Geographic specials on tigers, and there are a few of those. And yeah, you just dive into the world of tigers and how they move and how they react. And that's a big part of any assignment, is to do your research. And that's also a fun part of the whole process. Yeah.
Since it took you 10 years to finish, when people say that, sometimes people think like you're just working on it for 10 years, but like, so during those 10 years, like you were doing other things, so you had to find time to finish Mushka?
Well, it was mostly Mushka. At the beginning, I think after we were done storyboarding, which took about 9-10 months, an offer came my way from a publisher to write maybe a book on Disney's classic animators, the ones that worked with Walt Disney. So I couldn't say no to that, since I knew some of those guys personally. So I did that, and that took about 10 months out of the schedule. And then I also did, over the years, a couple of exhibitions for the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. That took a little time, but Mushka was the main thing, the main gig for me during those years. And the main reason why it took so long is really because our crew was tiny. It really stayed small. Yeah, if you had 100 people working on it, it would be done in 1 year or 6 months even, But for me, because I was able to do so much animation myself, it's a very personal project. I have more animation in Mushka than in any Disney film that I ever did, because I animated so much on it.
Mm-hmm. So along those lines, when you saw it for the first time at the premiere, with people, what was that experience like for you?
It was pretty incredible. I got really emotional actually before the premiere. When we were finished storyboarding, what you do with your storyboard sketches, you scan those already and you line them up, and you have footage. You have continuity, and you put some temporary voices in a temporary music, and just to see what this whole thing, this long thing, because it's almost half an hour, what that feels like. And I almost fell apart, to be honest with you, when I saw it for the first time. No animation in it yet, but just to see what the story, what feelings you get out of this particular story. And I was hit by the emotion, honestly, because I didn't know if we could do this. This is new to me. Directing a film and overlooking the story process it's entirely different than just animating. At Disney, I've always been giving a bunch of scenes. Here, some Jafar scenes, and this is what he's doing. Here's the storyboard. Here's your dialogue. Go and act it out. But this was a whole different thing, because you find yourself being involved in every aspect of filmmaking, in the storytelling, in the voice recording, in the final sound mix, in scoring the film. There was also the fun of it, that you were part of everything, of every step of the process. So very, very different. A little scary at first, because I lacked the experience in some of those areas, but a ton of fun.
You mentioned Jafar. When you're given the Disney villains to create, like, is it just like a clean slate, like you can create however they look, or are you already given like parameters of kind of how they're going to look?
Well, before I started animating on any Disney character, you set the design. As a supervising animator, you have to set the design of the character first, But even in that, it's a bit of a team effort, because when I come onto the movie, to Aladdin, by the way, I can look already at some storyboard sketches, and there's a version of Jafar already there. It's not finalized. It's kind of loose, but then it's up to me to set the final design based on what other people maybe have done at that point. So yeah, it's my job to set the design, and also make sure that my design fits with the design of the other characters, with Aladdin, the genie, and all the others.
Right. So I'm seeing
And then you start animating. You get the voice recordings and you listen to them, and that inspires the whole thing. What the characters will, how they will move and act. But that is really up to me. And to give you one example, so as you know, I did Jafar for that movie. If another animator, let's take Eric Goldberg, who did the genie beautifully. If Eric would have done Jafar, I can guarantee you it wouldn't be just a little bit different. It would be a completely different character because of the way he thinks, the way he animates. And if I had done the genie instead, it would be the same thing. It would be a completely different genie. It's that personal, in animation, hand-drawn animation. I'm glad that Eric animated the genie because he did a masterpiece and did it his way, and it's absolutely incredible. But just to tell you that it's really personal expression what we do.
Now, were you assigned people? Like, I was thinking about this. Do you get to choose, be like, this is the one for me? Or they're like, here you go, you get Jafar, you get Genie.
It's very funny the way that the animator's casting works. It's not formal. It sort of happens when you meet the directors in the hallway and you say, hey, I just saw that storyboard sequence, for this new film, and I think I could have some fun doing this character. And then they might think about it, or they might say right away, well, we had you in mind for that character. It's very casual. Yeah. It's not formal at all. There was a time when I was given villains to animate, and there was really one after the other. It was Gaston, Jafar, and Scar. And when by the time we got to Hercules, they asked me to maybe do Hades. And usually I would have jumped at that opportunity, but I told them, I said, look, I have just done 3 bad guys. If I do another one, there's a danger of me repeating myself, doing things with that villain that I've little bits, expressions and all that I've done before. So I said, if I have a choice, maybe I shouldn't do the villain. Maybe I should do Hercules. That's a completely different character. You won't get all the laughs, but for me, that would be a different challenge. And they said, we understand that. You do Hercules. So there were choices that we had throughout.
Because this is a team, if we interview a lot of people and it's we hire you for the part, and those people will often, for the most part, just go off to the 4 winds and do their other projects. But it sounds like being in this environment, it really is more of a team where you know each other. It feels very different, like a much warmer environment.
Yeah, teamwork is really the key here, because especially when you work on a feature, nobody can do this by themselves, obviously. And we did have people apply at the studio over the years who were very, very good. The portfolio was great and they could animate, but they really couldn't warm up to the idea that it's a team effort, that maybe your idea might not be the final one, that you might have to work with other people's ideas, and they left. And to me, it was actually never really a problem because I saw the benefit in it, because I could actually work with other people's ideas for my character that were really good ideas I didn't have. So, or I could help other people too with my suggestions. So to me, this whole team thing always worked for me.
On Mushka, how much, since it was mostly you, how much of the characters, the voice actors, shaped what the look of the characters would be?
Well, I came up with the look of the characters. I did that. The look of the background was mostly Natalie Franscioni-Karp. She painted just about 90% of all the backgrounds. It was just amazing. So there was really one person's vision. There's also an artist called Peter Merle. He did some development work, some research for the worlds that we see, whether it's grandmother's apartment or whether it's Siberia and what that might look like. So he also had something to do in a rough form what that might be. But Natalie painted all these backgrounds. So yeah, we had a small crew, but a really strong crew who made this film.
But talking about the villains that you've made, they're all they had their little buddies and their little flunkies, but this was these three guys who seemed all about the same, different sizes and shapes, but similar. How was that for you to have? It's like a very different formula for these villains who didn't have these big giant personalities like a Scar, a Jafar, etc.
Yeah, had this been a feature, to be honest with you, an hour and a half length, I would develop those villains individually, and you would find out specifically who they are, what drives them. For a half-hour film or almost half-hour film, I didn't have time to do that. They just meant no good. You know, they want to have money. They're ready to kill for it, to kill this animal and sell it. That is their main drive, and they're a team. You know, they cheat during the card game to achieve their goal. So they're just bad. You know, I of course gave them different mannerisms. There's the chubby one. I call him the boss, the one who has the hat. And then there's the creepy looking one who wears these glasses. You can't see his eyes. So yeah, graphically, you're trying to distinguish themselves from each other a little bit. But overall, they are a small group of bad guys.
So you have festivals coming up. What kind of festivals do an animated short play at?
Well, you submit and you hope you get selected. We are in Palm Springs at the end of the week. We have a big day coming up on Saturday showing the film. We've done a couple of festivals in Europe beforehand, and we're going to just do more and see how it goes. And it's really fun showing the film in different countries even. We were in Germany, we were in Spain, now we're back in the US, and to see people react and respond is just really satisfying. And because me as a filmmaker now, I've lived with this thing for so long, and it was just here. The film these characters lived here in my studio, my home studio, and to see it just all of a sudden go out there into the world, it's a little shocking at first to let this thing go, you know. But then reactions have been so positive and really heartwarming to me that it's just a joy sharing it.
How does it feel to get to that point of like, now, all right, this is done and it is going to go out in the world? That seems like it would be an uncomfortable thing to finalize that. Like, this is it. This is now my little baby in the world.
Yeah. I mean, even though we finished at the end of last year, I think mentally I haven't completely cut myself off it. I still do some of these kinds of drawings because I want to. And again, we had this small team, and I feel like I need to thank them for sticking with me all those years. So these are thank you drawings for certain members of my team, you know, that I sent out. And so, yeah, I haven't cut the cord yet. You know, eventually that's going to happen.
And it's such a longer investment of time, too. Like you were saying, if you worked with a team, it could be even 6 months of time. And this is 10 years of being, I mean, these get beyond just a character. These are beings, right? Feel like they're living. They're part of your life. So sticking with it all that time, that's a lot.
Yeah, somebody asked me that recently. How can you stick with something with a project like this for 10 years? I found it kind of crazy. But it just, I mean, the movie took on a life of its own. I knew when I read the script that this is not a 7-minute thing. I couldn't pack all these story elements into a 7-minute film. And I said, we're just going to board it and we're going to create this storyboard reel. Then we get a rough idea of how long it's going to be. And it just took 28 minutes to tell that story. You know, I couldn't do it in less. I could do it in more. I mean, this could have been also a feature film, but I wasn't in for a feature on this project. So it just felt like the right length. It was it was also, what was also different for me was I didn't have anybody call me on Friday and say, where is sequence 8? You promised that you had that done by Thursday, and where I didn't have that. It got done when it got done. You just have to stay with it and be disciplined, because it's very easy to say, I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to do that scene at the end of the week. I had those moments, and I did take a day off here and there, but of course, in order to get it done, you have to stay with it and be disciplined. And I just took great pride and joy just in the progress of everybody who worked on it. Whenever Natalie would send me like a new background, I was just on cloud 9 because she is so good, and so we kind of lifted each other up, whether it was my animation or background paintings or we did recorded voices. We kind of lifted each other up.
What are the plans to do with Mushka after the festival run?
Distribution would come next, so we're starting to look at that soon. But right now we're just focusing on the festival circuit and playing as many festivals as we can and enjoying that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I do have to go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm so into the art piece. Actually, Jafar really inspired me, and I had like a million drawings of Jafar all over the place. And I wanted to go to UCLA. It was a whole thing. But anyways, looking at the sketchy quality, and I know you'd said like there's a real value to you in the sketchy quality, and it does go back to that like great era of Disney where there was a lot of that. And you don't, in your mind, you're just watching it and you don't think, geez, what is up with all these lines? It's just, but it gives something to it. Like there's a flow and a movement that's very different from the very neat kind of line work.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point. I wanted to go back to that, to the 1960s. Especially the movie 101 Dalmatians, but also the other ones, the Aristocats, Robin Hood. They had the animators' drawings on the screen. They didn't have the assistant drawings who were all neat and clean. And it just adds to the artistry when you see the artist's hand on the screen. It just adds, it just becomes more personal. And I really wanted that and remind people that, look, these are drawings. They're obviously drawings. You see the black outlines, but they can also become real and tell you a story. And that to me is just the ultimate magic.
Yeah, I just want to say I really love. There's a little nod to the witch and Snow White on the bus, and I thought that was very cool with the apple. It's just enough, I think, to it's not like, hey, this is from Snow White, but it's there, and it kind of looks like it was a nice little nod, I thought.
Like a little homage here and there to the past, to things that inspired me.
In The Father, I thought, there's a little, we didn't talk about this, Neal and I, but there's like a little Huntsman event where the father starts off as this really severe, kind of doesn't want to deal with this daughter. Right. And then there is that warmth and really caring about her and wanting to make sure she's safe.
Yeah, and that was a really important arc. It's not just Sarah and the tigers, also very much so Sarah and her father, and it takes the whole movie almost for them to see them warming up to each other. And those are things you have to plan very carefully, and because that happens very gradually. To me, the first moment where he sort of say weakens and surprises himself, having these feelings for his daughter, is when she thanks him, because he said, you can keep the little tiger cub for a while. And he had just chopped some wood that he's holding, and she just grabs him and gives him a hug, and he just lets go of the wood, and you hear it fall down. It's almost a little wall comes down. So that was the start of him softening.
And, you mentioned the score, and Mushka's Lullaby is really nice in there. And I read in the thing it's by Richard Sherman, who is also from Disney. So I assumed you worked with him before?
No, this was the first time. I mean, I grew up with his music. Obviously, him and his brother wrote most of the songs for Jungle Book, which was my first Disney film as a kid. I was 11 years old, I think. And my God, those songs were in my head, for years. And the idea of working with Richard Sherman on my film is just I still get goosebumps thinking about it. And he offered, because about a decade ago, he asked me what I was doing, and I told him, well, I think I want to do a film, and this is roughly the story. And he got sort of fascinated by it, and he said, well, maybe somebody at this table, we had lunch at that time, he said, maybe somebody at this table can write some music for. And I said, Richard, are you kidding me? I would have never dared to ask him because he's Richard Sherman. Yeah. But he did write this beautiful theme that we use throughout the film, and also that becomes a song at the end. And my composer, Fabrizio Mancinelli, is also a friend of Richard's, and he used that theme and reinterpreted it throughout the film and created this gorgeous symphonic score. To me, it's like John Williams meets the Sherman Brothers, that sort of Mushka musically.
Yeah. So people should really go and seek it out when it's at a festival near them, because we saw it on the small screen, but I imagine on the big screen visually and the music would be a great experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Try to see the movie in a theater. We had the score. We recorded the score with the orchestra in Vienna. Very, very, very lucky to find those people. And of course, our final sound mix was done by none other than Skywalker Sound. So you're in for an experience if you see it big.
That's amazing. How do you plan? Because, your size of your work is only so big. How do you plan that to be on a big screen experience? Or is it kind of just, well, I'm going to draw it and it looks great, and just by default, it's going to be amazing on the big screen?
Yeah, I have a projection system here at the house, so I can see the movie on my monitor and check the progress and check for mistakes. But I can also screen it on a big wall,
Oh, wow.
So I did see it sort of on a large scale throughout the film. But it's just your choice, how detailed do you want to be? And we wanted to be just detailed enough to create a world, but keep it sketchy, keep it loose, and not overloaded with things that maybe aren't necessary to create an animated sketch rather than something that is very mannered and finished looking.
And you dedicated to Eric Larson, if you would like to say something about him.
Yeah, there came a time when I thought, well, I should dedicate it to somebody. And I thought, well, it could be my parents, could be certain artists, that influenced me. And then I thought, oh man, Eric Larson is the one who hired you, and none of this Mushka wouldn't have happened. The career that I had wouldn't have happened if Eric Larson way back didn't see a potential in me. I was going to art school in Germany over there, and I contacted him because I had heard that he ran a training program at the studio to bring new people in. So I contacted him and sent him some samples of my life drawing, animal drawing. And he wrote back and he said, why don't you finish school? I had about 6 months left, and then we'll take you into the training program. So it was all because of him, really, because it would have been easy for him to say, well, you have to work on this, you have to work on that, you're not quite there yet. And my career would have been completely different. But for him to see something in my work that allowed me to join the studio, I had to dedicate it to Eric Larson.
So that little boy who saw the Jungle Book, did he truly dream it possible that he would be where you are today?
It really is that simple. And it was very linear. You write to them, you get some information, you take the information seriously, you go to art school, then you reapply seriously at that time. But I also have to admit that I was pretty driven. My art teacher way back at high school, when I told him that I wanted to become an animator, he said, boy, that's not going to be easy. It's going to be competition. And he said, let me tell you, animation has to be the most important thing in your life. It has to. And it really frightened me then as a kid. But now looking back, it already had become the most important thing in my life. It really was. So yeah, that all that passion and drive took me to Disney, and now to do my own films.
The great joy of being in our presence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You still drawing the pictures. Would you ever revisit Mushka?
Yeah, somebody asked me that, and it could be a feature film. at this point, I'm happy the way it turned out. Would I revisit it and expand it? Maybe, but I'm not really thinking about that right now.
Yeah. All right.
Well, what is next?
I'm playing around with another short film idea. This would be a short, 7 minutes. It's a lovely format, 7 minutes. And it would be more a series of character studies rather than a linear story. But and it will be funny, very, very funny.
So this has been great talking with you. So thanks so much for doing the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sorry if it was a little late.
So much.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
I did draw Jafar all the time. I was doing flip books on the corner of my schoolwork. It was
cool. Very cool.
All right. Thanks, guys.
So Bye.
Bye.
There is an ancient evil, a cult like never before. The elder beer will throw out of every pore. Now faced with one decision that determines our fate. Let them win or exterminate. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? This ain't no hipster trend. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? The whisker wars must end. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? Beer cannon is on the way. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? It's time to shake the day. What's with this mad scientist and his hair growth formula? We need the scissors of Mustachia. Well, don't just stand there, Peach Fuzz. Join in on the crusade. Bring edge trimmers and air grenades. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? This ain't no hipster trend. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? The whisker wars must end. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? Beyond the beer wants to complain. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? It's time to shake the day. The relic emanates light. Watch a portal open wide. There's cowlicks to comb out tonight, and they have no hair to hide. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? This ain't no hipster trend. Do you bear the mark of the werebeard? The whisker wars must end. Do you bear